Hello and welcome to ACO TV. We're currently on episode 15. My name's Alex Garmston.
And I'm Holly Moore.
And today we have an exciting lineup for you on ACO TV. We're filming live here in the studio. And here's what's coming up.
First up, we take a look at intelligent homes with National Sales Manager Daniel Little and Adam Williams of Lightwave.
Then we have England versus Scotland. RSM's Tony Boyle and Michael Coupland go head to head.
Then our relationships manager Tina Mistry speaks with CEO of CORGI Technical Services, Claire Hayes.
And then we finish with a frequently asked question, how to set up a SmartLink gateway system.
So we're beginning today's episode with our National Sales Manager Daniel Little. He's going to be joined by Adam Williams, who is the Chief Commercial Officer at Lightwave, and they're going to be discussing intelligent homes, where they see them going in the future, the evolution of technology, and the challenges that may be faced by the industry. So let's take a look at their interview and see how they got on.
Hello, I'm Daniel Little, National Sales Manager here at ACO. I'm joined today by Adam Williams, Chief Commercial Officer at Lightwave. We're here just to have a conversation today, just to talk about smart homes. So nice to see you, Adam.
Likewise, morning, Daniel.
It'd be great just to hear a little bit about yourself and your background. And
thank you very much. Chief Commercial Officer at Lightwave, have been for a little over 3 years, which means I'm responsible for the sales and marketing aspects of bringing Lightwave's products and services to market. For those that don't know, Lightwave is a home upgrade system that intelligently controls lighting, heating, your appliances and so on. It's a complete system that can be easily fitted into any home using existing wiring, and can do the whole home or something down as small as a single room. And as I say, the key benefit is that no new wiring is needed, so it can be what's known as retrofitted into any home. Before that, a background in consumer electronics industry with brands like Sony and Samsung over the years. And I suppose the only other thing I've mentioned to introduce myself is I'm an environmentalist at heart. I actually did an environmental management degree when I started out, so I'm sure somewhere along the line we'll figure out how that weaves into a technology career.
yeah, and so do you just tell us a little bit more about the consumer products back, I suppose?
Background.
Background. What got you into this consumer electronics, and then obviously move forward?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always loved technology, or without sounding too pious, the profound transformation, the benefit that technology can bring to our lives. But I've also, been perpetually frustrated through my career at the gap between what technology, the potential of technology, and what technology promises, and the reality of the experience. And so, technology in of itself, is not enough. It's how that is, served to the customer, the services that go around it, the education, the support that's provided, etc. So through those years at Sony and then Samsung, I learned a lot from the consumer retail side about how to bring technology into people's lives and see the difference and the benefit that it could make. But then while I was at Samsung, Samsung acquired SmartThings, a very innovative US smart home technology company. And that really was a pivotal moment for me, because I could see how technology was moving into, the fabric of the home and actually making homes smarter. I saw as being, something that I really wanted to be involved in. And so I moved on from there. And as I say, Lightwave is a British, a very innovative British company that's been around for 13 or 14 years now, but bringing out really advanced products that I could see could fit into any home. And I really loved the democratization of that we were able to make smart technology, properly installed smart technology solutions available to all. Yeah.
Yeah, no, interesting. I'll just really pick up on one phrase you said there, which would be smart home. We do hear that term used quite a lot. I was just wondering if you had a definition of smart home that you would...
It's an interesting question, because I'm a bit of a, maybe I'm a nerd, I'm a bit of a collector of definitions of the term smart home, because it does seem to, be in the eye of the beholder to some extent. There's so many different perceptions and definitions of it. I mean, I actually took a note of the Oxford Dictionary definition, which is a home equipped with lighting, heating and electronic devices that can be controlled remotely by smartphone or computer, or I suppose these days a smart speaker or other smart interface device such as that through voice. And I think that does a pretty good job for most people, for most consumers, but what I feel it doesn't really capture is the true potential for connected devices, and intelligent connected devices to deliver more sustainable, safer, more comfortable and crucially more affordable, more efficient homes, because smart home technology really does reach into and provide solutions in all those areas. So there's this other phrase that's kind of coming through now, which is about intelligent living. And I suppose, without just wordsmithing, the difference between the two is, something could be described as smart if you're able to simply tap an app in your phone and remotely switch your lights on and off, whether that's from 3 feet away or 3,000 miles away, which is fantastic. But an intelligent solution is one that knows you're out of home because your location data on your phone tells your home system that you're out of home, and therefore intelligently manages your heating. So here I am a couple of hundred miles away from home right now. My home knows I'm here, so it knows what the weather's doing. It should be able to turn the heating down and therefore reduce my carbon footprint as well as my energy bills. So that's a very simple example of how smart home in all of its parts should deliver a very simple solution. Smart home often comes across as a very complex ecosystem of protocols and requirements and standards and things. And it is all of those things. We'll talk about some of the challenges. But in the delivery of the benefit, it just needs to be really simple for people. And so, intelligent living for me is the holy grail, where we're getting to, which is a system that you can schedule things, you can program things, you absolutely have control, but it's also making decisions in the background that are good for you, good for the environment, good for security, good for safety, etc., without you having to think about it too much.
I think what I take from that is it's the evolution of the market, in that when we previously had a heating system that didn't, or a socket that had to be turned on and off physically by a mechanical switch, the step to something which you could use another piece of technology to then interact with it, that would be classed as smart. But that technology, if we look at it, is actually quite old now, and we are to the next step of evolution where we've gone from smart to actually intelligence. But I think we're still maybe using the glossary of terms of smart, where we're probably not, we've moved on from that, but we're still using that old descriptor of it. So, and
the language will move on, and you've touched on another very important point there, which is, good technology, good smart home technology particularly, should take nothing away. The light switch, that there is generally a consumer concern that they're losing control in some way. And what we need to do is reassure customers that we're adding options, we're adding capability, we're not getting in your way. We're not setting up systems that are going to change your heating in your home that you have no control over, or that the light switch disappears from the wall at the end of the day. And without keep coming back to Lightwave, it's a light switch. It wires into your wall as a light switch, and that's very important for installers as well to understand. It's not a technology to be afraid of, but by adding that hub and by creating the wireless solution behind it as well, it adds options. It enables you to set schedules. It enables you to control it through a phone, or simply to say Alexa or Google or Siri, switch my lights on or off, or whatever it might be. But yes, you're absolutely right that the language is moving forward. As the market matures and understanding and awareness of it grows as well.
So I think that's the evolution of the first part of that term, which takes us to intelligent. I think as much what you're saying there, the home's there to complement, or the technology should complement to produce a home, which is the second word. Home, you think of somewhere safe, somewhere comfortable, right temperature, the right amount of light, and that's where it's not a house, it's a home. So therefore you need the intelligence to create a nice home. So I think it is the evolution of those two is important. Absolutely. So we spoke about the definition of a smart home, or more accurately an intelligent home. It'd be great if you could give us a few examples of what would make up an intelligent home.
So just a couple of interesting stats, I guess. I have the great privilege to be a board trustee of the Electrical Safety Board, and they do a lot of research into obviously the causes of fires and electrical dangers in the home, and somewhere in the region of 4 out of every 5 domestic fires, home fires, are electrical in source in one form or another, either something that's plugged in that fails or some kind of wiring fault itself. And yet, how many people watching this have smoke detectors in their homes which are intelligently connected to your power supply to switch that off? I mean, if that's going to eliminate, whatever's, the chances are, 80% of the risk of what's causing that fire. And this puts me in mind of a fantastic favourite quote of mine, which I use far too much. A chap called William Gibson in 1996 said, "The future's already here, it's just unevenly distributed." And I think that's really true of the dilemma of smart home and intelligent living and whatever names we put around it is. A lot of these solutions already exist. It's about identifying which ones to get traction around and how we can scale them into people's homes, because some of these solutions literally save lives, or at the very least save property. And another example similar to that is that around UK insurers pay out around £15 million a day on water damage and flood damage in UK homes on flood claims. And again, the technology already exists to put a water control valve and a couple of sensors underneath, your pipes and whatnot and your appliances that could then automatically shut off your water supply and notify you if you're out of the home, or notify, the utility to get someone around there and sort it out. And in fact, it was on that basis, it was on that example that Alex Hawkinson founded Smart Things, which ultimately went on to be acquired by Samsung, and was the one of the pivot points in my career, bringing Smart Things into Samsung in Europe, because he had a property up in the mountains that one springtime he went to, and over the winter the pipes had frozen and expanded, and then in the thaw had destroyed the property and done, I don't know what, $100,000 worth, $150,000 worth of damage. And he was, this was also avoidable, and he created Smart Things on the back of that sort of experience. So the point is that's several years ago now. So these solutions out there exist. So when people think, oh, smart home, is it a bit of a gimmick? I'm using my phone to turn my thermostat in my hall on or off, whatever. No, it's much more profound than that, and it's much more embedded into the fabric of your home and your life than that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's definite tangible benefits to this technology. The technology exists, so then it does pose the question: what the problems what problems need to be solved in this market to push it further forward?
Yeah, I think there's a huge number. The research says that the fears about data security, just awareness of the technology, upskilling installers, the upfront cost. There are lots and lots and lots of challenges to unlock the uptake of smart technology, smart homes into people's homes, and also the diversity of the housing stock. I mean, there are 29. Just to throw a mad number at you for a minute, this is a number I'm just really enjoying at the moment. There's around 29 million homes in this country. And as we all know, anybody that's ever done any home improvement work, every single home in this country is different. It's got different wiring of different ages. It's got different building materials: brick, breeze block, partition walls, steel girders, pipes. All of these things play havoc with Wi-Fi signals or where your wires run in your walls, etc., etc. So any installer, any electrician going into any one of those homes doesn't know what they're dealing with until they can get into that home. Equally, every single one of those 29 million homes is lived in by people with different needs, different wants. They might have an aging relative living with them that has more care needs. They might have young kids. They might be out at work all day. They might have pets. They might be really tech savvy. They might be very tech averse, whatever it might be. So you've got 29 million homeowners or home dwellers living in 29 million different configurations. Well, 29 million times 29 million, it's a big number. It's 841 billion if you're interested. So let's round that up. Yeah. There's literally 1 trillion combinations of what a smart home actually needs to be. And that complexity, that's the great challenge. Now in that, there's enormous opportunities for a whole bunch of industries to respond to that, but it's the coordination of those industries that's required to get traction and bring this forward. And so naturally, of course, the solutions that have emerged so far largely have been either the more straightforward plug-and-play solutions for people, so without naming brands, you know, smart light bulbs, plug-ins, you know, smart speakers, these sorts of things. And generally speaking, most people have got a few of those devices in their homes today. Or it's people who are prepared to invest in having a fully integrated custom install solution. And, you know, if you can afford it, those are fantastic systems. They've been around for a really long time, home automation systems for your home, if you can invest in that. But what we're seeing now is a tipping point into people sort of graduate. They've got used to, they've got the bug for smart home from those first products that they've bought into, and they want them to do more. They want Alexa to be able to do more because they've got used to that interaction. And so we're seeing people now, you know, coming to put it into the fabric of their homes. And so the building the confidence for them to do that, you know, they need to know, look, if I wire this stuff into my home, is it going to be future-proof? If this company's not here in 5 years, how do I get, you know, my light's going to stop working, is my heater, I'm going to have to rip it all out again. Confidence on the part of the installer as well. You know, a lot of these guys, they've actually got all the skills they need, but, you know, people tend to fear what they don't know or they don't understand. So, you know, there's a big barrier to overcome for professional installers at every level, whether they're general trade or they're, you know, specialist lighting sector or whatever it might be, or M&E contractors, to understand how to get the information that they need, the training, to get involved in, you know, projects early enough as manufacturers to work as a partner with that designer or that installer or that specifier to overcome that. So I'd say I'd probably group that up as there are 3 top challenges, if you like, in my mind. There's lots of challenges, but I'd group them. The first one is interoperability. So I'm really encouraged, both in my day job with Lightwave, but also, you know, I'm also involved with the Smart Homes and Buildings Association, and seeing how many manufacturers are now collaborating, not just with other manufacturers, but with utilities, energy companies, telcos, these kinds of things, to find those systems that just work, find those commonalities. But also very encouraging to see developments such as the Connected Home over IP, so CHIP for short, the CHIP Alliance, who've got Apple, Amazon, Google, you know, several other major global leading manufacturers and brands on board to create a common protocol to solve exactly this interoperability challenge. And again, plugging Lightwave briefly, but we're very proud that we're compatible with a lot of those brands that I mentioned in their ecosystems. The second one I'd say that I've touched on is installer training. So, working with recognised industry assessment schemes such as the NIC-EIC that Searchall run, these sorts of institutions, to train, upskill, assess and monitor those installers, not only to give them the skills and the confidence that they need, but to give the consumer the confidence that if they use such a practitioner, such an installer, they're getting somebody who understands the latest standards, understands the latest technology, and they therefore have confidence that if they're going to invest in installing this technology into their homes, that they're not going to regret that somewhere down the line in terms of it becoming obsolete or whatever. And it sounds like I'm outrageously plugging Lightwave again, but one of the things I'm most proud of over the last year or so is we've developed a national network of Lightwave Pro trained installers with CPD certified training to address exactly this. That we said, okay, look, these guys have got the electrical installation skills, but we need to give them the full suite of commissioning a Lightwave system and really supporting them with that. The third and final area is consumer education, and this is the one that I probably don't have, such a clever answer for, because this is the ongoing challenge that for many years now retailers have invested heavily. What I'm very encouraged to see is the trade wholesale sector is now really investing in both online, but in a trade counter at branch level, etc., in educating their customer, the installer, but also in equipping those installers to help educate their customer, which is the homeowner, the end user, whoever it might be. And I think that the greatest ongoing challenge is consumer acceptance and confidence, and there's a lot more work to be done there, I think.
Yeah, totally agree with the consumer. I think even the ambiguity around the definition feeds into this, doesn't it? There needs to be a whole education for the consumer market. Just going back to where you were talking about, there's the two ends of the scale. We've got the consumer products, which are just plug and play, and then we've got the other end, which is the more complex specification, high-end system.
Yeah.
But we're talking about this bit in the middle, I suppose, the professional market.
Yeah.
What bodies are providing the education? Like, has anyone taken hold of that? Like, that's the bit we need to tackle.
It's a really good question, yeah.
To see progress in this market.
Yeah.
How do we achieve that? Or how will the market achieve that?
Look, lots of people are involved, and so a rallying cry, a challenge to everybody, is to talk more to each other. I've mentioned one or two already. I think without name dropping, everything from, at that more custom install level, Stuart Tickle, the MD over at AWE, doing a fantastic job with training facilities, etc. Providing that direct training of installers and designers, etc. All the way through to the Electrical Contractors Association. You've got the EDA, the Electrical Distributors Association. Everybody's leaning into this now, but it seems strange to say it's early days because people have been doing this for years and years. But as smart technology becomes incorporated into literally every category of building infrastructure, of electrical systems for the home, etc. That's just mushrooming. The need for that training is just mushrooming. So the various organisations that are there are having to work very, very hard to handle that scale of that pace of innovation and stay on top of it. But I would say it's still an enormous challenge for the industry. There isn't one, go-to catch-all central university of smart home. Maybe we should create one, Daniel.
Yeah. I know we've spoke about this previously, so I've got to try and weave it into our conversation now. There's a few things you mentioned, like the fabric of the building.
Yeah.
So building this technology into the fabric of the building.
Yeah.
There's really two ways of installs. You've got your retrofit or you've got new build.
Absolutely.
So I think, like, when you look at a home, how would you know whether it would attribute the label of smart home to that building? That would be a real interesting one, because 280,000 new homes are built every year, obviously pushing to build more. How many of them are smart? How would you know if they were smart? And how would we know my definition of smart would be
different to
your
mine.
definition of smart? And I think that really is something that does need to be addressed as well, to be honest with you. There needs to be that standard or regulation or something to say, yes, this hits that standard, because without standards and regulations, we're talking a different language ultimately.
And there are some things, there are some moves, like there's the Green Homes Initiative, and there's the Green Mortgage, and so there are criteria out there that to qualify for a new build, to qualify for a green mortgage, which unlocks greater borrowing power on a mortgage at preferential rates and all the rest of it. It needs to have a certain carbon footprint. It needs to have an energy rating, like your fridge used to have, and that you need to have when you're buying a home now. You need to have those surveys done. So built into those there are schemes that exist. But to add even further complexity to this, is actually what we're really talking about here. The greatest crisis transformation that we're going to see over the coming years is the decarbonisation of the home. So to me, a smart home is not just everything that we've talked about, but it's the one that has an integrated energy management system, one that has your EV charging but does it on tariffs that are optimised, that sells back to the grid because you've got solar, into technology integrated into that property, that has heat recovery systems. The democratisation of the energy industry is all part of this as well. So you're absolutely right. How do you put that tick in that box that says that home meets a certain bar, a certain standard, and that one doesn't? And I think we're some way away from that. But what I would say is we need to now start looking at well, actually, is smart home the right term? Is intelligent living the right term? We're fundamentally talking about having homes that are fit for people to live in at the most basic, fuel poverty and the social housing, industry in this country, facing into this to find, to make homes that are fundamentally habitable. But beyond that, housing stock in this country that meets a zero carbon, the electrification of the home, the removal of fossil fuels from that home. And frankly, smart technology needs to be as integrated into that home as gas central heating is today. It sounds ridiculous, but gas is an unbelievably old technology, right? Literally millions of years old. But, so when you say to people, yeah, we're going to rip your boiler out and, put in a heat pump and whatever else, that still feels dramatically disruptive to people, but that's what's going to need to happen. And what's the point in doing all of that if the endpoint devices in that home, the sockets, the light switches, the sensors and everything else in that home aren't also then, turning the heating down when you leave the home, making sure that the ventilation and the air quality there's a growing, awareness and concern for air quality and those sorts of things. How do you do that in a sustainable way? So I can't come up with the standard because I can't even come up with the right term for this yet. And I'm sure there are brighter people than me out there that already have, and I'd welcome them to come and talk to us. But yeah, so you're right, that there's definitely a move in that direction. I think you just have to, my only advice is get involved, talk to people, collaborate. There's organisations like the Smart Homes and Buildings Association, which, at the end of the day is simply a forum to enable people who are vested or interested in this industry to come together, to share ideas in a non-conflicting way, to look at trends together and to work on very real projects to make progress in some of these areas.
Yeah, well, you beat me to it. I was going to ask you about Smart Home and Buildings Association. Do you just want to tell us a little bit about their background and
absolutely.
where they originated from?
Yeah, no, so they've been running for a number of years. I've been involved for 3 or 4 years now, something like that, joining some of their conferences and events, and then more recently, last year, like everybody else, on Zoom, on webinars. But the Smart Homes and Buildings Association has members from all sectors. I mean, researchers, designers, developers, installers, manufacturers, retailers, distributors, etc., energy companies. And as I said, it's a forum, it's a group that through a number of platforms, conferences when such things are allowed and appropriate, webinars, but also the website, sharing various papers and interesting news stories and whatever, to share use cases, to connect with each other, and to work on some real and tangible projects. The themes again, are organised, around 3 pillars, and again another way to sort of segment or define the smart home industry. One is around health and well-being, so leaning into things like habitable properties, fuel poverty, energy efficiency in the home, those sorts of things, but also an ageing population. How do we lean into things like what COVID has taught us, among many other things, is the solutions that technology can provide to an ageing population or people who are vulnerable, getting the support they need at home to be able to stay in the home for longer, in life, into older years, etc., without relying so heavily on the NHS, without having to go out of the home for checkups all the time or whatever it might be. So this whole health and well-being area, air quality in the home, those sorts of things. And then there's another one around energy and infrastructure. So another thing, they bring various panels together to talk about, the energy sector, what challenges they face in the smart home. So energy and utilities are regarded by the Smart Homes and Buildings Association as very much part of the smart home agenda. It's not seen as a separate industry. And the third one is around consumers, retail, manufacturers, product manufacturers, distributors. So people who are bringing products to market to consumers and with consumers. And so that panel and those events tend to tend to talk about some of the challenges and the opportunities that exist in the retail space and in consumer education, consumer awareness, acceptance and uptake, and Context, who are a world leader in consumer research and sales research in various markets and market sectors, is very, very supportive in bringing insight and research papers and things, and they commission their own smart home consumer panel research around attitudes to smart home, everything from awareness of it and ownership of it all the way through to who's their trusted advisor. Would they go to a DIY retailer? Would they talk to their installer? Would they go to a consumer electronics store to get advice on smart home? But there are a lot of changes in the pipeline, coming out of COVID. Smart Homes and Building Associations taking the opportunity to really look at its place in the world, to look at its agenda for the year ahead, and that needs to change as well. And how we're going to deliver a lot of that I've talked about. Do we do it through online webinars? Do you get back into a classroom type environment? Yeah.
Here's hoping we can get back into a classroom type environment after
nice.
a year of being on Zoom and Teams and webinars. I think there's a definite need in the market for that, to be honest with you. But I suppose just thinking there, the way people use the home has changed significantly over the last year. People spending a lot more time at home. It's now no longer just a home, it's kind of a home and an office more so. So I think, so how we're interacting and the demands we place on our home have increased. Health and well-being is a huge area. You can see more and more people wanting to stay at home, and why would you not want to stay at home towards the end of your life? So it's being able to create an environment where that makes that possible.
Absolutely.
Smart Homes and Buildings Association sounds really interesting. You seem to be tackling some of the problems you've identified about education, working with the installers, creating that consumer awareness. It's great to see that. If people want to learn more about Smart Homes and Building Association,
just go to the website, sign up, register, and get on the mailing list, etc. So SHMBA or
you're going to have to say it before I do.
So the Smart Homes and Building Association, we have these meetings where we say Shabba. Absolutely, raises a smile. You've mentioned another very interesting thing, over the last year, 18 months as well, which is that, the data that Context provided showed that, the drop that we saw in IT infrastructure spend in offices and workplaces over the last 12, 13 months or so was more than compensated for by the investment in home networking, people upgrading their broadband or their Wi-Fi or buying IT products for the home. And that's actually conversely going to create a huge boost. As you say, people have shifted to realizing that they can be very productive at home. They can work from home. There's a work-life balance opportunity there. So I think people do want to return to offices, etc., but on a rebalanced basis. But that means that infrastructure has taken a big leap forward, several years in the space of a year, if you like. And that creates an enormous opportunity now for those consumers to be, offered the next level in smart home technology, because they've just invested for a year in the infrastructure and realised they can actually be very productive from home. So I think, the future's bright for the next few years for smart home manufacturers who can connect with consumers and say, well, you've just invested in your home network, so you might as well now, go the next step.
And I'd totally agree with that. You see it in on TV, them promising Wi-Fi in every corner of your home, and it's that battle for connectivity throughout the home. And even myself at my home, I've gone to the effort of putting in like Cat 5 or Cat 5e throughout the home to increase the infrastructure. So what you're saying there, I've not heard that stat, but it is very true. And it's how we build from that infrastructure. Now we've got that in place. I suppose looking forward, now we're saying we've got the infrastructure or more infrastructure in our homes. How do you see the future? What excites you about the future of smart homes? And
I think, I've got a vested interest here, right? Because the company that I probably mentioned, several times that I work for, but so everybody's got a subjective view. But I have to say, I'm witnessing a real tipping point towards a deeper integration of smart technologies into the fabric of homes, and solutions coming through that enable that, and overcoming consumers' anxiety about will it work? Is it going to be reliable enough? Is it going to be interoperable with other systems? I think a lot of those things are getting solved, so people have got more confidence. So I think what I'm really excited about for the next few years is that, and this is going to sound kind of strange, but that smart home will cease to exist as this idea of being a separate category that people do that's not associated, in some way with more traditional categories. I think that, one of the greatest challenges, but also one of the things that are the trends for the future that really excites me, is working at every level of industry with suppliers, distributors, wholesalers, installers, the consumers themselves, retailers, everybody coming together, service providers, and by service providers I mean the energy companies, the insurance companies, the quad play or telcos of this world as well, the broadband providers, etc., to help customers have smart home as a solution. Ultimately, what is smart home? To come back to the very first question we talked about, smart home is a service. People just want to pay for a service. They don't want to have to do the homework to say, right, what router do I need? What gadget here do I need? Which sensors will be compatible with that, etc. They're looking for a complete solution. They're looking for a service. And the brands and the providers that I think will win out, and are already starting to win out, are the ones that are joining up the dots for the consumer. And, out of great complexity needs to come simplicity. Yeah. And that's hard work. Getting to simplicity is really complex. But a lot of work's been done. And it's the old swan analogy or iceberg analogy that what's under the surface is high energy and huge, and what people are seeing above the surface now is starting to be, I think we're going to see a consumer willingness and an industry move towards the smart home itself, the home itself becoming smart rather than being a home with smart gadgets in it. It will be, when you lock the door and walk away, you'll think, my home infrastructure has a water supply, an electricity supply, and it's smart. That will just become part of the common understanding of what a modern home actually is, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think I like that the simplicity is the most complex one, and I think maybe we'll get to a point where we just call it a home. This is just a home. They talk about broadband becoming the fourth utility, so this is just the extra layer on top of that, I suppose. That's right. As the market develops and evolves even more, there's so much enthusiasm, excitement bubbling under at the moment. You can see it's just about to bubble over and just become the norm, I suppose, which is such an exciting place to be. It's been great talking to you today, Adam. And
thank you, and you.
Thanks for coming to visit us in Oswestry.
Beautiful part of the world. It was a nice drive.
But you've been very welcome here. It's been great to listen to you today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. It's been a great day. Thank you.
Thank you to Daniel and Adam for that informative segment on intelligent homes. It's really interesting to see where we're going and where the housing sector is going to end up in the future. Right now we're going to go to a quick break. We're going to be looking at our EcoFit range. We'll see you soon.
Our next segment of Eco TV is England versus Scotland. Our regional specification manager Tony Boyle from Scotland and Michael Coupland from England will be discussing the differences between fire and CO detection in Scotland and in England. Many of you probably thought it would be talking about Paul Gascoigne's volley or Lee Griffiths' couple of free kicks. This is obviously on the eve of England playing Scotland in Euro 2020, which I'm sure will be a really exciting game. But for now, let's hear Tony and Michael talk about the differences.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to ACO TV today. In the build-up to the England-Scotland game in Euro 2021, myself, Michael Coupland, the RSM for the North East and Cumbria of England, and Tony Boyle, my colleague who looks after Central Scotland, thought we'd meet up, discussion in regards to the differences between what we're doing currently north and south of the border in regards to fire and CO detection. So we're not only going to cover what's law, but also the Scottish Tolerable Standard as well. A brief look at the 5839 Part 6, and then also an approved document B and J. So it's only, from what I can see, a couple of years ago, there's some changes, some standards up north of the border in Scotland.
Indeed there was, Michael. We had a change to the Housing Act for Scotland.
Yeah.
It was an amendment called the Tolerable Standard. So what that really was, essentially it was a change in legislation, and it really required every single property in Scotland to be up to a certain level in terms of fire and carbon monoxide detection. So
what was it previously towards this, and was it just working off building regs, or how's it changed?
So previously we just worked to the British Standard, which is BS 5839 Part 6, as you know.
Yeah.
And our new builds, we have a separate set of building regulations. So that applies to any new build properties and to any properties that are getting or existing properties that are getting work done where a building warrant is involved.
Yeah.
So what about yourselves down south?
Yeah, so it doesn't seem as quite as simple as what you've got north of the border. So we've got approved document B and approved document J. So you've got approved document B, so that's the building regulations for fire safety within the home. We've got approved document J, which is the building regulations for carbon monoxide safety within the home.
Yep.
Then we've got the two British standards in there as well. So we've got 5839 Part 6, as you previously stated, but then we've also got 50292 for the CO. But none of them seem to meet together. Everything seems to just to fight against each other a wee bit, really. So we started off with approved document B, so that's your building regulation, that's your minimum standard, that's what you have to do via law. Where it states minimum coverage within the properties and LD2 system, so just basically just covering your escape routes or rooms within rooms that form part of an escape route. Well, you move away from there and you get to 5839 Part 6, and that goes much further. So I say that's what you've done up in Scotland, to try and get everything just tied together in one place.
Essentially, as you know, Part 6 would recommend usually an LD2, category LD2 system installed in the property. So that's obviously our hallways, escape routes, our main habitable living area, and the heat alarm in the kitchen. So obviously our new tolerable standard more or less reflects what Part 6 recommends in most properties.
It seems so much easier what we're doing down here. You've got so much conjecture of what you can do, what you can't do. It seems certainly what we need to be doing south of the border is taking a leaf out of what the Scottish have been doing up north of the border and get things going that way.
One of the big things for us, especially in terms of the legislation, is it actually rolled the carbon monoxide into the same document.
Right, so
whereas previously, obviously, they would have been separate, as you know, 50292, British Standard for CO and Part 6. So we actually include the carbon monoxide in our new legislative requirement as well. So we're going to be covering any areas where there is an extended or a concealed flue, or where there is a fuel burning appliance, except an appliance used solely for cooking purposes.
Right, so you're not covering cookers,
no,
so just covering your gas boiler.
We're not obligated to cover cookers, but 50292 would actually recommend a best practice that we would cover cookers. What about yourselves in terms of carbon monoxide? What are you actually obligated to cover south of the border?
A solid fuel burning appliance, really.
Just a solid fuel burning appliance.
So what you're doing north of the border, once more, we're lagging a long way behind what you could be doing. So say if you've got the same property north and one in England, one in Scotland. So in England you've got a solid fuel burning appliance in the living room. Everything else is fed by gas, so you've got a gas system within there. All you'll have to cover there is your living area where you've got that wood burning stove. The kitchen where you've got your boiler, if the boiler's in the bedroom, don't have to be covering it. So obviously you guys up north of the border, you'll be covering the living room, but you're also covering that kitchen or the room where your boiler is. So again, we're lagging behind a lot more.
I think it's absolute madness that you could go and buy in a property in England, a new build property, and the boiler wouldn't have a carbon monoxide alarm fitted.
I mean, it could be the same house builder. So you've got Barrett's north and south of the border, one in Berwick, one in Haddington, 30 miles up the road, and you're getting two total different types of system within there. It's same with the smoke detection as well. So again, in England, you'll generally find a new build, it's you into approved document B. So all the covering is by law, top and bottom of the stairs. But again, you buy the same property in Scotland, you've got a smoke alarm in the kitchen and heat alarm in the kitchen and a smoke alarm in the living area as well. So it seems crazy, really, what we're doing south of the border compared to what you're currently doing up in Scotland.
We're off forever showing you guys up, aren't we?
We'll see that a week on Friday, 8 o'clock, Tony. That's where we'll see that.
The old enemy.
Yeah.
I can definitely see a victory for Scotland.
Yeah, I think you had your victory over England early on this year at Twickenham, didn't you, in the rugby? I think when it comes to football a week on Friday, I don't give you as much of a chance, to be fair. Fair play going further above in your smoke and CO detection.
But what about in terms of the types of alarms that you guys are fitting down south? So, what are you fitting? Is it what grade of alarms is it? You're
generally within social housing providers, you do follow 5839 Part 6, whether it be one part of it to do this. So 99% of them will be fitting the grade D1 alarm, so 10-year sealed battery alarm. Some of them still, sealed battery backup. Some of them still do use a user replaceable, but again, within 5839 Part 6, it does pretty much tell you which way you want to be going. So anything rented, whether it be socially or privately rented, it should be grade D2 grade D1 category LD2.
Yeah.
Again, how are you doing it north of the border?
Our legislative requirement, it does say that you can fit mains powered alarms, which is just grade D. It does not differentiate between D1 and D2. So as you mentioned there, so a D1 was obviously a mains powered detector with a lithium sealed battery backup, and a D2 is a mains powered detector with a replaceable battery backup. So it doesn't actually differentiate, it just says grade D, so it doesn't go into that much detail.
How have people been switching towards? Have people been going towards a sealed battery? Have people going towards use replaceable battery?
You tend to find that obviously a lot of our social landlord customers, if they are fitting mains power detectors, they will follow BS 583 Part 6 and go with the 10-year lithium sealed battery. But one of the big kind of inclusions in this legislation was the allowance for grade F, so grade F1 detectors.
So only grade F1, not grade F2?
Just only grade F1. So that's just a detector solely powered by a 10-year lithium sealed battery. So it's no mains power requirement at all. So what we tend to find is most of our customers will look for a hybrid solution. So you'll find that most properties, not all, will have a mains powered alarm already situated within the hallways.
Yeah.
And category LD3. Obviously we know that they have to meet LD2, so what they tend to do is to retain the fact that there's a mains powered supply already there, which is perfect. They will replace that with a new mains powered detector, usually a grade D1, and then they will fit the grade F elsewhere.
So why fit the grade F then? Is it ease of install, price?
I would say it was an ease of install, but we know as well that the Scottish Government did put a deadline on this legislative sort of standard to be met. Initially it was February 2021, but because of COVID, and we know loads of things have been delayed, such as the Euros as well, we've kind of extended that to February 2022. But it was definitely for the ease of installing, and it's kind of seen now that these grade F detectors are of a good enough standard to last that full 10 years. And although it kind of contradicts BS 583 Part 6, because I will always recommend mains power detectors, D1 or D2. We find that a lot of landlords are moving towards the grade F sort of hybrid solution.
What in regards to carbon monoxide alarms? Is it just battery across the board?
It's just battery across the board, and mains. It's a mixture, so it is a mixture. There's you can fit battery, 10-year lithium sealed battery alarms, or you can fit.
So will you find your social housing providers, will they be linking them systems together? So will you link in your CO to your...
Aye, so again, part of the requirement is that the smoke alarms are interlinked. The carbon monoxide alarms, they don't necessarily have to be, but most social housing providers will link the carbons and the smoke alarms together. Just because of that audibility factor and raising that awareness for the occupant.
If you've got it in a boiler in a bedroom hidden out the way,
absolutely. Absolutely. What about your customers down south? Are they tend to do something similar?
It's very similar. So I mean, we don't fit any battery down here, apart from a very, very, very temporary base. If you get a call out in the middle of the night, they may well fit a battery heat alarm per se in the kitchen. It'll go back and switch out for a mains power one if they didn't have in the back of the van for the next day. Yeah. But like I said, all the social housing providers that I deal with across the north and Cumbria, they will all fit a grade D1 alarm, whether it be a multi-sensor or whether it be a single sensor, it'll all be grade D1. Yes. But in regards to carbon monoxide, it's very much client-led. It's whichever one they want to go down the road. And the majority of them will just fit battery, just due to ease of install. When they're installing them, they can do it on a CP12 on the gas safety check, so you don't have to wire them in. You can just 2 screws in the back of the head, clip it on and go from there. In regards to interlinking them together, again, there's nothing within the legislation that says you can or you can't. Again, it's client-led. But what I've found is whenever people are linking them in together, they always fit doing a test switch in there, because obviously if you've got 2 or 3 people living in that property and you've got 5, 6 alarms sounding, it can be quite disorientating. First, for the sound of it, and secondly, you don't know which alarm is actually going off, whether it is your fire or whether it is your CO. So with the test switch in there, when you press that hush button, it'll silence everything in that property, barring the one that's been going off, so they can know whether it's a fire in the kitchen or a CO alarm going off in a bedroom. So that's if they do it, that's generally the way they will always fit a test switch within there as well.
So we kind of know that England are, in the sense of fire and carbon monoxide, they're absolutely lagging behind ourselves up in Scotland. So where do you see that moving then? Obviously we've got legislation now, so it has to get done, and obviously it applies to every property in Scotland, including private homeowners. Where do you see it moving in the future in terms of in England? Where do you see it going?
I think the only way that we can do is follow suit. We can't, like you said previously, with regard to new build properties, it's surely not right to be able to buy one new build in Berwick, one new build in Haddington, 30 mile in between each other. You're getting total different life safety systems. So we have to follow on at some point down here in England, whether it be this year, next year, the following year. But we do need to bring out some kind of legislation, even if we're just going to cover rented sector, just to get us going, get us started, and then look on the private homeowner after there. But carry on saying with approved document B that it's okay just to cover escape routes in my book, and I'm sure social housing providers' books as well. Keeping these people safe, it's just not adequate enough. The majority of the fires start off in the kitchen, the living area, and then rooms just aren't being covered. Obviously, that's why they've done it up north of the border in Scotland. Everything that's gone over the past 4 or 5 years, and the lads at Grenfell and everything else, you can't be lagging behind so far what they're doing in Scotland. So with your connections up in Scotland, you ever cross into Northern Ireland? Do you know what they're doing over there in Northern Ireland?
Obviously, one of our colleagues, Duncan, in Northern Ireland, I believe they're very, very similar to Scotland in terms of their building regulations. So their new builds, they'll be moving to LD2 in all their new builds, category LD2.
Again, pushing forward what they're doing.
Mains powered alarms. And again, when you bring carbon monoxide alarms into their new builds, very, very similar to Scotland as well. So they're covering all fuel burning appliances, not solely solid fuel burning appliances. And I believe in terms of existing properties, they don't have like a legislative driver like we do in Scotland, but they will follow like yourselves, the British standards, BS 583 Part 6.
So if they're doing any work, it's not smoke alarm circuit, then just leaving it compliant.
One of the big issues that we've came across in Scotland is that all these existing properties are being upgraded at the moment, and there's a lot of jobs maybe getting done where a building warrant is involved. So a building controller involved. Now the Scottish Building Regulations, the technical handbook, has not been updated to reflect the legislation, right? So the Scottish Building Standards still recommends Grade D, mains powered alarms. We find that a lot of contractors will go and fit Grade F alarms, Grade F1 alarms, because of the legislation, so there's a bit of confusion there. And because the building standards has not been updated to reflect the change in legislation, with different documents telling us conflicting information, the guys at building control tend not to actually pass these Grade F alarms, and they will want mains powered alarms on any of these jobs where a building warrant is involved. You know what I mean? So that's created a lot of confusion up north of the border. You know.
To be fair, I can say it would cause a little bit of confusion. It's totally understandable, but it seems like it's still much more well sealed up than we've got down in England and Wales. I mean, where you've got an argument, but you still fit into a Grade D. LD2 system. South of the border, we're still arguing building regs against 5839 Part 6. People still trying to get out of fitting to the best practice guide because they've always got the building regs to fall back on. Until we get the approved document B and approved document J changed in England and Wales, that argument's always going to be there for not only contractors but for specifiers within new build and social housing, for whether it be social housing, electrical contractors, gas contractors. There's always that get out clause of approved document B, approved document J.
We don't have to do that because that's all it says that we're obligated to do, and the British standard is just best practice guidance, so we don't, you know what I mean, that's kind of their get out clause. We're not obligated to actually do that. See, in terms of your new builds, social housing sort of sector new builds, what are they doing? Are they still following the British standard in their new builds, or are they only going, or are they tending to go with the...
Generally just going with approved document B.
Really?
The majority of them will do, It's whether they're buying it Section 106 or just buying it off market or just building them for themselves. They are just generally going in with what the new build provided. So it's generally an LD3 system just covering top and bottom of the stairs with a user replaceable PP3 battery, so a Grade D2 system. So
Grade D2 system?
So they've still got a hell of a long way to go to get from where they're currently at now to where they could be in the future, obviously matching what they're doing in Scotland. So But where we are in England and Wales, we are a long way behind, obviously, where you're currently at. Is it about another 7-8 months you've got to comply with the tolerance standard?
February 2022, so I think certainly towards the latter end of this year, we'll see a bit of a scramble just to get a lot of these properties upgraded. Most social housing landlords, if not all, do have some sort of programme in place where they're pushing towards reaching that standard. But we really need to try and raise awareness for the private sector as well of those obligations, because at the end of the day these are life safety systems and they're critical that these are actually in place for the private homeowner as well.
I agree, and so it is critical, like you say, for the wider public, like you say, the general public in your homeowner properties. It's crucial that they do realise these legislations, especially north of the border, and hopefully when they do come south of the border. If we're not out obviously preaching this word of what they need to be doing, how are they going to know? They're not going to know. Exactly. You could end up somebody who's living in one house next door to the other. Someone's got a homeowner to either privately or socially rented. One's got better life safety coverage than the other. That shouldn't be the case. Everybody should have the same coverage across the board, across the UK.
I think the best we can really hope for is like a UK-wide sort of legislative driver in England that just
something sent from Westminster, just sent out across the board. This is what we have to do. This is your time frame to do it. I mean, I've got in England, in the North East, you've got social housing providers upgrading to LD2 on voids and rewires. So that property might not become void for 35 years, but they've got a 30-year rewire scheme. So for 30 years, that property is going to be non-compliant with the 5839 Part 6, which in my book is absolutely ridiculous. Like I say, if you've got, like you say, Scotland, was it 3 years, did you say you got to comply with in Scotland?
So when it was published in, I think it was 2019, it was published, then they had, originally it was a 2 years sort of deadline, February 2021, and they've got that year extension due to COVID, so it was 3 years all in. 3 years all in,
compared to 30 years down here if you want to comply. So something has to be done. It's just, like you say, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. So, Tony, just to quickly touch on a point that you raised before in regards to covering gas cookers and kitchens with carbon monoxide alarms. So are they currently doing that in Scotland then?
Well, we're not obligated to actually protect the gas cooker if the boiler is situated elsewhere in the property. The majority of the time the boiler is usually in the kitchen, but that's not always the case. So, for example, if the boiler was maybe in a bedroom cupboard and there was a gas cooker in the kitchen, a lot of the time people, they will cover both, but they're not obligated to, so they would just put a CO alarm at the boiler and leave the cooker. But what I tend to find is that a lot of our social housing customers, they will cover them. They will cover them because 50292, as we know, best practice guidance for CO would recommend covering all fuel burning appliances. So they will cover them. It's just a wee bit of confusion there for a lot of people, and again, conflicting information from different documents. What I tend to find as well, that even if it's maybe like an electric cooker in a property, people will fit like a carbon monoxide alarm there, like a heat CO, because they need to fit a heat alarm in there.
Well, just a future-proof.
Just in case that ever changed in the future, maybe a new tenant moved in and they installed like a gas cooker or something like that. So if that ever changed, it does future-proof.
Well, I don't know what your feelings are anyway. I mean, from my feeling on gas cookers is you're not testing the cooker, you're testing your own gas point coming at the back of that cooker from the properties. So why not cover that, obviously, just to alleviate that risk?
I think so.
And also in the summer months as well, what's going to be getting used more? Is it going to be the boiler or is it going to be the cooker? Surely if you're cooking 2 or 3 meals a day, if you've got the gas home, you've got the gas cooker, you obviously, there's a huge risk from the cooking in there as well, which I do think, is, certainly in England, is overseen more than 90% of the time. That gas cooker is forgotten about, and they do only go after that gas boiler. But no, it's really interesting what, like you say, what they're doing in regards to
It's interesting that there's so many different documents taken into account, and they're giving us wee bits of different information. Do you know what I mean?
So it's like even you delve into the wiring regs. So you've got BS 7671 where it's got one line in there. It says all smoke alarm installations should comply with relevant 5839 Part 6 series. And it's like, surely it needs a little bit more than that. It's just push you.
I know. No, that's another thing that's came up with me quite a lot, obviously, as an ex-electrician. As you know, I think it's 0.518.10 in the 18th edition, the wiring regulations. It does recommend that, you know what I mean, these are things that we should be complying with these. Do you know what I mean?
Recommendation.
It's a recommendation. But again, a lot of the contractors that I speak to in Scotland, they will put that down in their observations. If that property, the system in that property does not comply, they will put that in their observations on their testing sort of findings, and it usually will be rectified and brought up to that standard. So, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, it's a minefield, isn't it?
Really
it's absolute minefield. Once we can get a UK document, as we discussed previously, just saying this is what we need to do in regards to home safety, jobs are good from there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's definitely what we're looking to do, pushing forward.
Yeah.
We've obviously got Tina Mistry, who is our relationships manager now. So and she's definitely looking at working on that side of things.
Push it over the next 18 months or 2 years, and we can just get this document released.
Really lobbying for that change. And so no, it's been fantastic speaking with you.
Really interesting. It's fascinating to find out what they do and how they do things so differently in Scotland as opposed to England and Wales. It's fascinating to see, and we've got a hell of a long way to catch up. Much like you, like guys, a week on Friday.
So thanks very much. And if you need anything from us or you require any further information, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. And we'll look forward to the Euros, and fingers crossed Scotland can get a result.
Cheers, everyone.
So thank you very much.
It was great to hear from Tony Boyle and Michael Coupland there, both very competitive when it comes to football. Great to hear about the differences in Scotland and England. On this occasion, I think Scotland are leading the way in fire and CO detection, but I'm sure on the football pitch it'll be England that lead the way. Holly, what do you reckon the score will be on Friday?
Well, as someone who doesn't watch football and cannot make a sensible educational guess, I'm just going to go with a draw, 1-1.
A draw, 1-1. All right, there we go. You're going to the bookies. I wouldn't take Holly's advice. I'm going to go for an England win, 3-1. But for now, we're going to take a short break and we'll see you again soon.
Introducing the SmartLink Gateway and Cloud Portal service from ACO. A new and innovative product developed with registered social landlords and housing associations, giving you complete control and reassurance when monitoring and maintaining your stock of alarms through SmartLink Cloud Portal. Easy to set up, the Gateway is a roaming 2G GSM-based device, ensuring maximum connectivity possible without the need for local broadband or Wi-Fi services, increasing efficiency while remaining compliant with legislation. Featuring real-time alarm status, fault status, text alert and email notification capability for both fire or CO and fault events, as well as installation reports and replacement and fault reports. The SmartLink Gateway and Cloud Portal service is your total solution for alarm maintenance and asset management. The smarter way to check your tenant safety at any time. SmartLink, a revolution in tenant safety.
So for the third segment of today's show, we're going to be joining our relationships manager, Tina Mistry, and she is going to be speaking with Claire Hayes, who's the CEO of CORGI Technical Services. So we're going to be supporting the National Social Housing Safety and Compliance Week conference, which is coming up in the next couple of weeks. So they're going to be discussing the conference and what's going to be happening there, what to expect. They're also going to be discussing CORGI's members and the challenges facing the social housing sector.
And today I have Claire from CORGI Technical Services. Claire, do you want to introduce yourself a bit more?
Yes, I'd love to. Thanks, Tina. So I'm the Chief Executive of CORGI Technical Services and the Association of Safety and Compliance Professionals. So I've been with CORGI for over 20 years, but originally that was as the Finance Director, and in the last 12 years as the Chief Executive, but I still like to make sure things add up. I like to ask the big questions as to what's our purpose, do things hang together, if not, why not? Where's this road taking us and who's joining us on that journey? But importantly, as always, how can we be better and how do we continue to add value? And over the last decade, which seems like a long decade, founded the Association of Gas Safety Managers, Association of Electrical Safety Managers, the ASCP, as well as Women in Compliance. So it's been very busy.
So Claire, how do you find time in your day to do everything?
It's hard and it's challenging, and it's usually things that don't get done that should get done. But I think when you've got that sort of commitment and that passion, it just drives you.
I think what is ASAP's relationship with CORGI Technical Services?
Okay, so ASCP is a membership organisation with about 1,000 strong members, and CORGI Technical Services is the support, the technical support, the expert support to ASCP. And actually CORGI has got a heritage, particularly known in gas, of over 50 years. So they support all the members and they absolutely love doing it as well with such passion.
So Claire, you've got a wide range of members. Who are your members?
Okay, so we've got about 1,000 strong membership. Traditionally, we come from the manager side of things, so compliance managers, gas safety managers, electrical safety managers. But I'm really pleased the last few years, we've seen a real sort of shift in appetite for people to want to understand more. So we have chief executives, lots of directors, as well as frontline staff. So we're really starting to see a bit of a shift, which is something I've always wanted, where we're starting to have a broader conversation, a more holistic conversation. I'd say in the main, we're probably still quite focused on the compliance manager, and that's our sort of the people we really understand, but crucially just building those broader conversations.
And how important is that to have broader range of conversations happening?
It's critical, absolutely critical. And that's why I love working with our members, because they're so honest, they're so passionate and committed. And if you ask the question, they will tell you, but you have to listen. Only by listening do you find out what's really going on the ground floor. That's where the real work goes on, not in the boardrooms, not with the strategy. It's the people that are doing the job. And if you listen to them, they will I always say, if you really want to know where your risks are, ask your safety and compliance managers. They usually know, but you have to listen, and you have to be looking for those things of where you can help and facilitate some of the solutions and the answers to that.
And do you think there is that sense of disconnection at the moment?
There is, I think it's getting better. I call it the operational strategic gap. And right from when I founded the AGSM, it was always my vision, if you like, to close the gap between the board and the people doing the work. It's easier said than done, because they are very different roles, and that's where the leadership comes in. And we're starting to see more of that, but we're certainly not seeing enough of it.
And would you say that's one of the key successes that you're having, is with that leadership aspect?
It is, sometimes kicking and screaming, because, one person's view of leadership is different than another. And I'll put a slightly different spin on that safety leadership is different. So I sort of questioned myself and thought, so, if I'm saying things aren't where they need to be, is that a problem in the sector? Well, the sector's amazing. The work the sector does is just like some of the best, most important things for our society are going on within the social housing sector. I absolutely love working in it. So I was questioning myself, well, why am I saying this isn't working? And I think it's because the culture is a good culture, but is it focused on safety enough? And I think it's the safety leadership and culture that we haven't got right. And there's a lot of work needs to go on to put that right. So I can certainly share more of you on that, and it's part of what National Social Housing Safety and Compliance Week is all about.
I think you're so right there. I think there is that sort of there is a really, social housing sector is an infectious sector, and everybody wants to do good and wants to see people being safer and more happy in their homes. That's all everybody really wants. But there is a lot more to be done in terms of that culture, isn't there? Especially with your memberships. You've got a lot of your members sitting on the managerial aspect, and you've got that. It's great to hear that you've got quite a lot more chief exec and the strategic aspect coming to around the table to have those conversations. But clearly that's an area of culture that needs to be developed a lot more as well, isn't there?
Quite right.
I think it's in terms of, with the conference itself, I'm really looking forward to being part of it. I think it's going to be really interesting. What was the story behind in terms of developing that conference specifically?
Okay. Well, it's something I wanted to do years ago, to be honest with you. I'm a big believer in collaboration, and I don't want to just throw that word around as a buzzword, but really working together and seeking to understand more about how we can all be better. And for me, that includes people like yourselves, ACO, our suppliers, our supply chain, all members of staff, residents. It's a very broad piece of work that so unless we start to have that conversation and involve people across all stakeholders, including government, who need to listen, then we're not going to move forward. And we clearly have to accelerate the pace of change where things haven't moved quick enough. So it's vital that so if I wanted to provide a platform to start those conversations, I have a lot of conversations with members, which I absolutely adore. And it's clear there's still a lot of frustration, Words like overwhelming, the challenges are huge, people aren't listened to. So it's the only way that we can start to work together clearer is to start to be a bit more honest with each other and look at what's really motivating us and driving us. But my one shining light is, and this is fantastic, we all have a common goal. Now, it's not often you find that. We all want the same thing. Unquestionably, we all want safer homes.
So, Claire, tell me, what's the purpose and the background of why you're hosting the National Social Housing Safety and Compliance Week?
So, one of the main reasons, next week will be the 4th year anniversary of the Grenfell Tower disaster. 4 years. We've still got so far to go. And it's clear that there is no silver bullet. No one person or one individual has all the answers. We absolutely have to work better together and really harness that social capital, if you like, that feeling of needing to be better, wanting to make a difference. And I know next week we will all have our moments. We will all reflect on Grenfell, how we got to where we did and have we done enough. So it's important that we do work together. And one of the things I love is that, and it's really unusual, it's not often you find that a sector as big as ours actually does have one very, very simple purpose and goal, and that's to keep people safe in their homes. The beauty of that is everybody agrees. So what is stopping us? Are we really tapping into that emotional purpose of why we do what we do? Or do we just get fixated on the day job and work in our silos and have our heads down? And I think it's an opportunity for us to really reflect on why we do what we do, work better together, but an opportunity to engage with all stakeholders. So very much the sector can work internally, and we've seen a lot more work working with residents, which is fundamental. And that was brought out really strongly in the social housing white paper. But it's everybody, it's the whole supply chain as well. People like yourselves, ACO, doing a fantastic job providing technology, many appliances to keep people safe and safety devices. And that whole network, whether it's contracting, whether it's doing work in people's home, the supply chain has to engage on National Social Housing Safety and Compliance Week, because they are part of the solution. We're part of the problem, we're all part of the problem, and we're all part of the solution. So it really was about collaborating and starting to tell the truth, our own truth about our own challenges, what's preventing us from doing the job we really want to do, and having those honest, sometimes challenging conversations.
What challenges do we face in the sector?
Okay, well, I think everything I've already said, really, but more than that, we know there's a lot of good work going on in the sector, but there really are some fundamental issues that we still need to address that have really led us to where we are today. And quite frankly, in some of those areas, I think it's fair to say we are in a bit of a crisis. The good news is people are more aware. People are starting to zoom out and look for answers. It scares me to death that we could have another disaster. Have we done enough? But if I was to pick out some of them, and I could go on for some time, some real fundamentals, and this is going to take some time to solve, but unless we start to really articulate that and make sure that the solutions are deliverable solutions, we will just fail. So an example being the skill shortage. Now, that's across most disciplines. It's so hard to find, and I use the word a lot, competent resource, competence. What does that mean? What does that look like? Again, it's become quite a superficial thing. So competence across every discipline is a challenge. We know it's an ageing, skilled workforce. Funding is a huge challenge across the sector. There is so many conflicting priorities. It's very political. It's a huge job for social housing providers. So funding is massive. Investment comes from funding. That's whether that's in people, apprenticeships, resources, investment in systems. Data is king. Do we have the systems that we need to run homes safely, to know where our homes are, what safety devices they've got in there, what actions we need to take? They're probably some of the key things. I've talked about the supply chain. I do believe that procurement is a real challenge. It's a bit of an elephant in the room. For me, it's sort of the back door to areas that could be unsafe, because it's seen as a technical exercise, and unless the specification is really robust, built from knowledge, technical knowledge, not just procurement knowledge, inevitably driven by price, driven down by price. I've seen contracts issued based on 100% price for a safety contract. I'm sorry, we are failing.
How can you put a price on safety?
Well, as an accountant, there's a price to everything. However, it has to be proportionate. It has to be understood. It can't be the lowest price. And it's a difficult question. You're quite right, Tina. It's, that's where we start from. That's certainly what my members would say to me, who aren't financial people. How can you put a price on safety? It's the right place to start, but we have to work back and say, well, what does good value look like? But one thing's for sure, 100% price is not going to cut it, I'm afraid. And I think collectively as suppliers, perhaps we need to start calling those practices out. So yeah, that's a concern for me. And then probably lastly, what's helped us get to where we are is the lack of safety leadership and culture. In that gap, that board to operations gap, we're doing a lot of work on that. The sector does do a lot of reporting now. There's a lot of metrics that didn't used to be. There's almost an obsession with compliance. Now, absolutely, compliance is critical. You have to comply with regulations, but it kind of is the lowest common denominator. It won't make things safe on its own. It's one part of the equation. And I think the regulator has driven people to focus on compliance because it's relatively easier to check and it's vital, but there's many more things that need to be laid on top of that. So we will be looking at that during Safety and Compliance Week. And as the ASCP, we're developing that whole portfolio of culture and safety leadership.
I think that's quite vital. Your membership you've got a diverse set of membership, mainly managers, and you've got a lot of more chief executive and strategic direction coming in. I mean, why are you seeing that transition now? Is it because of regulative requirements? Is it because they want to be there, or is it because they need to be seen to be there?
Maybe a bit of both. I think a key driver was Dame Judith Hackett. I think she did a fantastic job of identifying what good looks like and where we've not been so good, and calling that out. It's in black and white. It's in many of her papers. It's referred to in the Grenfell Tower inquiry often. So I think it's hard to hide from the truth and the evidence. And people, I would say, nobody goes to work intending to do a bad job. Everybody wants to do a good job. So once we can start to talk about what the challenges are and articulating what is the problem, because it's a big question, that's a place to start.
And that's it. What is it that your participants can expect from the conference? Because I've seen the work you do in Women in Compliance. I've been to your roundtables, and they're not just a conversational piece, are they? No. They unearth so much more deep meaning to them. And what is it that the conference will bring? What would the participants expect from that?
Okay. So our conference, our ASCP National Social Housing Safety and Compliance Conference, as you just said, Tina, we talk about a whole array of activities. And I've always said when I took on this role, safety is not just a technical conversation. And I was determined that we would never just focus on technical subjects. It's much broader than that. So you're quite right. We aim to empower people to have the courage, to feel they can do their best work, and to know when it's time to have the difficult conversation, or if necessary to move on, if then they don't feel that they can deliver their best work. So we really do try and support all of our members with some of those more softer skills, if you like, which, you know, if I ask them the question, do you want this, they probably say no, but they get it anyway.
I think that's just, I think, and it's raised that point. You've got a lot of compliance managers sitting in that management role, but you're quite right. Unless yourselves are addressing those confidence issues, the whole notion of empowering, engaging them to actually say how they feel and really be adamant and being assertive and why something relating to compliance needs to be addressed for senior management, we're never going to achieve anything, are we?
No, it's absolutely critical. And one of the things I love is, I always say our members probably have all the answers. We're just not listening to them. We don't facilitate the conversation well enough. We've come a hell of a long way. And, you know, it's almost like a brotherhood or sisterhood that we really do support each other. And you know, sometimes there's a lot of goodwill, and you can take a lot away from just being heard and having those conversations. But there's a long way to go. And I am looking forward to the Safety Week. I'm looking forward to our conference when we build every year on that, and our new course, which you've probably seen the name Jill Koenig come up. I'm going to give you a bit of a plug now, Jill. So I've got Jill's book here, which I started to read, and Jill will be working with us and JMJ on a specific director's masterclass in safety, leadership and culture. So that's one of the things I was dying to work with Jill on. It's not my expertise, but it's her expertise to really sort of bring to the fore some of that theory, examining some of the disasters that have happened across the world and how they got to that point and how they got out of that mindset and that systemic challenge and safety issues that they found themselves in.
I think that's the reason we want to work with yourselves and support you on this conference. I know we're the headline sponsor. For us, we're not headline sponsoring it because we're ACO and it's a monetary aspect. For us, we want to give back to the social housing sector, and we want to work with yourselves because we understand, Claire, the relationship that we have isn't just CORGI, ASAP and CORGI Technical Services and ACO. We want to make sure the managers that you work with are equally empowered, are totally engaged to actually raise those concerns that are fundamentally impact people's homes. And that is why whenever we have a conversation, they're really enjoyable. But what we want to do is to help you and to drive that message further, because if organizations like yourselves aren't doing this, who else will? And I think the beauty about what you're doing there in terms of harnessing that culture of being assertive, expressing yourself and the confidence aspect is a big element that needs to be addressed. So from us to you, that is why we're supporting it. We want to create a platform where everyone comes together, have an open, transparent conversation. And we know, Claire, with you leading it, that's exactly how it's going to go.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tina. Well, you and I met many years ago, didn't we, in different roles. Although I think I might have been in my role, but at a very different stage. And certainly, you know, you've always been there, you've always supported us, and we're absolutely delighted that you're helping us shape and move this agenda on. And we'll be back every year. We'll be looking at our challenges. We'll be looking at how have we progressed, looking at pledges this year, looking next year, did we achieve our pledges? If we didn't, why didn't we? What stopped us? What got in the way? And you always have such a great way of helping us get those messages across and bring your own spin to the week. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
And Claire, a bit about you. I mean, you're an accountant and you're a chief exec of CORGI Technical Services. There's got to be something in there. Why do you wake up every day with that bounce in your step and with the passion that you have?
I love a crusade, I think. I love to fight for the underdog. And do you know what? I think the safety and compliance professionals are the underdog. Safety is not a bolt-on, but it feels like it is. People aren't listened to. And I just absolutely adore working with members because they are honest, compassionate, professional. They really try so hard to do a good job, and there's many barriers in the way. Now, we can't solve all of them, And even if it's just budget alone, I do understand there is a finite pot of money. But we have to shout louder for our slice of that pie. And some of that will be working with finance directors, procurement managers, sharing safety objectives. And until we can do that and think bigger and zoom out, then we're not going to solve these problems on a micro level. We have to start to look on a macro level. And yeah, members and clients every day get me out of bed in the morning and drive me to be better. And I don't get it right. I make some terrible mistakes.
But don't we all? We all make mistakes. I think it was interesting. We've been having conversations about, we're only human beings. Everyone makes mistakes. But as long as you're sincere and true to yourself, you can't go far from being wrong, can you?
Not really. And I think learning from the lessons as well. And dusting yourself off and going back and being better. And sometimes it's quite a hard thing to do. Even doing Safety Week, I kind of scratch my head and think, is anyone going to join? Is this going to be okay? Are people going to, want to sort of embrace this and be part of it? And so far, the uptake has been fantastic, and trying to understand what would feel like value to people, what people would feel engaged with. So some of the areas we're covering, so we've got Jill talking about the lessons that she's learned from Grenfell in her book, Jill Koenig, on Monday. On Tuesday, we've got our professional coach, who Tina, talking about empowering ourselves to make safety everybody's business. Wednesday, we've got the first one that I'm aware of, a best practice access group. Now, access is, when I first came into my role and I asked the members, I wanted to know how I could add value. What's your biggest challenge? I was absolutely shocked when overwhelmingly it was just access to do their job. How have we got ourselves into this situation? So we're going to be talking a lot about access. And I've got a few thoughts on that one. Data, IT systems, again, not my thing, but we are working with some experts in the field to talk about data, because these are all the pressure points of safety and compliance. The big six, so I'll have Mark Baker from CORGI Technical Services talk at a sort of a whistle-stop tour for directors on the big six, what they need to know. And then on Friday, we'll be going out with a bang on a session with Connexus for tenants, together with tenants. So we've got a kind of nice broad section, hopefully something that appeals to everybody, and that's free for everybody, whether that's from the supply chain, safety and compliance professionals. We'd love to bring in some of the IT people, some of the procurement people, some of the finance people. These are our collective challenges, and please hear some of our pain and see how you can help shape the agenda moving forward.
I think it's going to be a really good week, and we're looking forward to supporting yourselves on it. I think the members definitely are going to benefit, and the wider audience equally. And it's so important that these discussions have an open environment.
Yeah, definitely.
As opposed to behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So thank you in advance for everything, Claire, and looking forward to developing that relationship with you, strength every year, really. Not just on the conference, but overall.
Yeah, well, it's the first of many. It's just a platform. It will grow every year. We won't have got everything right, but we're pushing it out there. Not next week, the week after. So it'd be lovely to see as many people as we can.
Thank you very much, Claire.
Thanks again, Tina and ACO.
Thank you to Tina and Claire for their session. So National Social Housing Safety and Compliance Conference is actually next week. So if you want any more information about it, please visit the link below. And now we're going to go over to Alex, and he's going to tell us about this week's FAQ.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Holly. Next up, we have our most important part of the ACO episode, our frequently asked question. This week, our question is presented by Samuel Marsden, and the question is how to set up your SmartLink gateway system. Let's take a look.
Setting up the ACO SmartLink gateway. One of the first things that's always worth checking is that all your alarms are in factory default mode by pressing and holding the house code button until the blue light begins to flash and then release the screwdriver, ensuring you do that for all products within the system. Moving on to the app, the first thing you have to do is go into the Add Installations section, enter the postcode of the property. In our case, I'll enter the postcode of our headquarters, SY10 8NR. and press the search button, which will return a list of properties associated with that postcode. Then, filling in the UPRN, which is the reference number for the property. Make sure this is an appropriate term, as this is what you'll be using to find it later. Pressing Add Gateway and Units when all information is filled out correctly. Then you press the Add Gateway button, scan, and hover the QR code scanner over the QR code on the base of the gateway, pressing Next when you're done. Then select the location of where the unit is installed. So in this example, we're going to say it's installed in the attic. The location nickname section can be used to add extra detail to where the gateway is installed. However, you may also leave this blank. The gateway must then be put into house coding mode by pressing the house code button on the top of the unit until the light goes solid blue and then release. It will then flash a number of times to indicate how many devices it is coded to. This, as it's the first device, should only flash once, as confirmed by the flash count screen. If it matches, press Count Confirmed. Then we proceed to the step where you add alarms to the system, pressing Add Unit, making sure to scan both QR codes, both on the module and the alarm itself. When it scans both, it will automatically exit you from the QR code scanner. Then input the location of where this alarm is installed. As it's a 3028, I will be installing this within the kitchen. Then place the alarm onto the base, using the house code button to put the alarm into house coding mode by again pressing the house coding button until the light goes solid blue and then release. As this is two separate sensors, we'll be looking for 3 flashes on both the gateway and the alarm. Pressing Count Confirmed when the count matches on all the units within the system. Making sure to scan both QR codes on the bottom of the alarm. Pressing Next when done. As this is a 3024, I'll be installing this in the hallway. Pressing Next when done. Like last time, pressing the house code button till the light goes solid blue, then release. We'll be looking for 4 flashes on all products within the system. When matches, pressing Count Confirmed. As this is the last product within the system, we'll be pressing Finish this time rather than Add Unit. And it will then ask you to press the house code button on the gateway till the light goes solid blue, then release. The yellow GSM light will then come on as the gateway uploads the profile to the cloud. When it's done, press Next, and we should get a green cloud symbol to confirm. Pressing Complete when done. And that's how you set up an ACO SmartLink gateway.
It was brilliant to hear from Sam there talk about the SmartLink gateway system and how to set it up. But that's all we've got time for this week. I just wanted to make a quick announcement. Our newly wrapped mobile and training demonstration units are out on the road this week at 4 different locations. Next week we'll be doing a roundup of how they got on being back on the road, a number of wholesalers, carrying on with expert installer training in person. We'll have some footage, some short interviews, pictures, and a full detailed catch up with some of the RSMs that participated in the training. But that's all we've got time for this week. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are pushing for some milestones. I'm not going to go into figures because we're almost past the milestone we want to talk about. But also follow us on social media on the following platforms:
LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and TikTok.
That's all we've got time for. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you again soon.
See you next week.